So I know that Disney's track record when it comes to their live action nostalgia remakes that are nothing but just loophole strategies to make sure they hold on to the IP rights for a lot of their most popular works from the Renaissance onward is like 4 to 5 good ones out of the 17 properties that got this treatment so far. Peach Dragon was intriguing because it didn't try to adapt the 1977 story and instead chose to tell a new one with elements of it. Glenn Close as Cruella de Vil was amazing. Seeing Sleeping Beauty told from the point of view of Maleficent the way that it did provided a great story that's still highly talked about today surrounding patriarchy, colonialism, assault, and the difference between justice and revenge, even if it was made as a response to Wicked's Broadway success. Do you want to see me cover that? Let me know if you want to see me cover that. But considering that, according to my thoughts and opinions, only 4 to 5 of the 15 that are currently out and the 2 that are about to be released in theaters as of March of 2025 are either good or unique enough to be remembered, that says a lot. So with the release of the trailer for Lilo and Stitch, the latest victim of Disney's nostalgia-milking capital machine, a lot of people have already labeled it as not just a live-action remake that doesn't enhance or do anything new with the source material, but also as nothing more than blatant propaganda. And considering what I know about how America colonized Hawaii, the native versus tourist situations that they use in the B plot of the original movie, and seeing that same situation play out after the wildfires happened, I have to admit that I immediately became one of those people. I mean, I already had my reservations back when this was in pre-production after hearing what was going on with the casting department of a certain main character that I'll talk about later, but you know what I mean, tomato potato. But then I saw the trailer, saw all of the changes that they're making from the original in this film, and realized the multiple reasons why they were doing it. And it's because I know that, I owe it to all of you to share the reason why this should be the last straw regarding not just these live action remakes, but in regards to Disney itself. Basically, readers, what I'm saying is, you shouldn't pay money to watch this live action Lilo and Stitch movie if you want Disney to get better. And I'm gonna tell you why. Let's begin. Hey readers, Laron here, offering you analysis and perspective of your favorite bits of geek and pop culture media. And, oh wow, it's been a minute since I've made an opinion piece like this, hasn't it? Like, I don't even use this musical track anymore, holy shit. It's still one of my favorites though, so if you end up liking this fusion of my current video framework with more recently dropped pop culture news and releases and want to see more, let me know in the comments section. But whether it's your first day or you've been a student of mine for a while now, there's ways that you can show some love if you like what you saw and you want to move forward. Like joining my Patreon, for example. You can get ad-free early access to all of my videos across every channel starting at $5 a month, including copies of my video scripts, merchandise store discounts, and a whole lot more. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and subscribe to my Substack newsletter. Not only is it the home for all of my written editorials, opinion pieces, and reviews for film and television after they debut on Patreon, but you'll also get an actual heads up whenever I post a new video on both Readus 101 and Readus 201, 5 minutes after their release. That's the syllabus, now on to the lesson. Reason number 1, Nani. Nani is played by Sydney Agudong, half Polynesian on her dad's side and half white on her mother's side. And if you've seen my video essay on colorism and how pop culture embeds it in us when it comes to them choosing how we should be represented, the genes of the white mother dominating that of the Polynesian father, but still being present a la a drop or two of melanin in the mix, is the reason why she got the role. No, because when she was first announced as Nani, motherfuckers were confused. Mostly because this was the headshot that was used across every website and news source announcing the casting, and she wasn't giving Nani. Bitch, she giving Natalie at best. Now, it's obvious that this headshot was taken to show possible studios and whatnot that despite her being mixed, that she can still cater to the comfortability of whiteness, just like other racially ambiguous performers before, as I've covered in my colorism video essay. But the problem is that Nani is supposed to be an indigenous native of Hawaii like Sydney's dad, not just a native of Hawaii like Sydney herself. Nani is supposed to be the connector that shows us how native indigenous Hawaiians who had their home colonized by capitalistic white supremacy have had to deal with their home and their culture being turned into a culturally appropriated tourist attraction that caters to the rich and the haughty while they're ignored and left in poverty. Now that Nani is portrayed by a racially ambiguous woman who caters to the white American gaze enough so that they don't have to feel bad about taking over Hawaii in the 1800s when they see this film, that connection to America's constant mistreatment of every indigenous group that they've colonized for the sake of land is gone. The thing is, that connection via Nani's skin tone and ancestry is necessary for the B-plot of Lilo and Stitch to make sense. So to put someone in this role under the "she's native enough" sticker, while also realizing her looks cater to the comfortability of Americanization, aka the concept of whiteness 2.0, is to completely undermine the narrative for the sake of white feelings. White feelings that, as I'll cover later on, have lots of money burning holes in their pockets and that Disney desperately wants. Am I saying Sydney Agudong is a bad performer? No. I've never seen a thing that she's in, so I can't judge her in that regard off principle alone. Am I saying she's right for the role? Also no. Because she isn't right for the role. That is, if this live-action version of Nani is supposed to be a direct translation from the animated movie. But considering what else this movie does on purpose, something tells me that a direct translation of Nani from animation to live-action was never going to be the case anyway. Reason number 2, Pleakley. Getting rid of Pleakley's drag is 100% queer erasure, and I'm 100% serious. Yes, the girlies on social media are reacting in a way that I know my people... I'm sorry, I overspoke. Let me correct myself. The overtly privileged white version of my people like to act when it comes to dramatically reacting to first world inconveniences. But considering Disney's actions when it comes to LGBT, QIA+ representation as of late, especially hearing about the back-to-back-to-back assault that they gave Pixar when it came to Riley's queerness in the Inside Out franchise, Kai's transness in Win or Lose, and then ordering Pixar to water down the environmental message in the upcoming Hoppers. The reason why the decision to make Pleakley disguise himself as just a regular male human instead of a male alien presenting in femme clothing and attire, not even for comedy's sake, feels incredibly targeted, because it is. And they will find ways to justify taking Pleakley out of drag in this live-action version of Lilo and Stitch, especially in ways that'll appease the people who can't take art seriously if it's animated a certain way. I didn't want to say something like people who have literally no imagination, because that's an insult to people with aphantasia, and they regularly succeed at being creative and original despite it. I mean, something around the lines of wanting to make this adaptation a bit more realistic in regards to aliens trying to pass as humans. In which my response, and I hope hundreds of thousands of others, would rightfully be, motherfucker, how you gonna aim for realism when it already has aliens in them? I mean, this is Lilo and Stitch, it's not like the bitch Arrival. But in all seriousness, do not focus on Disney's words in situations like this. Instead, look at Disney's actions. Look at all the times that they tried to hide queer representation through an exec order on a show. Or that they only cared about having various first queer characters under their belt. Or that they always retreated back to the status quo when something didn't do well and, according to them, would have been way more profitable if queerness didn't play a factor in its creation and execution. Disney only cares about the opportunities queer representation provides, not queer representation itself. Oh, and don't worry, I didn't forget about the other excuse they could possibly use. That the reason why Pleakley isn't in drag and is just a human man alongside Jumbas is because they're probably gonna pretend to be a gay couple on vacation, substituting one version of queer representation for another. This is also bullshit. Because what you're actually doing is showing us which form of queer representation you currently find acceptable, especially during a period of time where transphobia is at an all-time high. What you're actually doing is saying that if you had no other choice but to place queer representation in this film, that you would prefer the two aliens in question present a form of it that can be accepted into patriarchal capitalism. Out with the flamboyant alien in drag out to the world, refusing to tone himself down for anyone representing queer respect. And in with the alien pretending to be another alien's human husband in order to blend in with American society and be just as normal as everyone else, a la queer respectability. I, as a bisexual African-American man who has seen persecution for both of these aspects of myself, am at a point in both my life and my patience where queer respectability is absolutely unacceptable for me. I will take up space, I will live out loud, and I will be who the fuck I wanna be, because you can do exactly that and not have to deal with the persecution of your very existence if you do. And fair is fair, right? So yeah, don't let the basic white gaze make you think that this is just an exaggeration. Taking Pleakley out of drag for this movie says a lot about how Disney is handling it. And, surprising nobody, it properly ties into reason number 3, its purpose. The biggest perpetrator here is that Disney blatantly altered the core message of the original animated movie. What makes Lilo and Stitch, Lilo and Stitch, because they need this live action adaptation of it to be nicer to the rich white Americans that either move to or vacation on a group of islands that are constantly being destroyed by their presence. Because after watching this trailer, I immediately knew that what it was they're selling me here is not Lilo and Stitch. It is, instead, a hollowed out version of Lilo and Stitch made to completely betray the principles and core aspects of everything surrounding the original. A native family and their adopted space dog are trying to stay together while outside forces constantly try to split them up, both within the realms of reality and beyond the stars. However, because it both shows and implies people have knowledge of indigenous Hawaiians and their culture being appropriated, being forced out of their own land by rich white Americans, and then barely being paid enough to stay afloat by selling a white vacationer a tiki cup, the movie clearly shows us that this played a huge factor as to why things escalated with social services and the like in the first place. This narrative is incredibly important in the narrative of Lilo and Stitch and is brought up constantly, both in how Navi navigates working so many jobs to take care of Lilo and herself, and in how Lilo personally views every tourist we encounter. This film, having so much good social commentary on Hawaiian's tourism industry and how it impacts the livelihood and mentals of indigenous Hawaiians, both implied and subtle, is a part of the very heart of Lilo and Stitch. But unfortunately, Disney owns Aulani, a family vacation resort and spa in Hawaii. And just like Moana, they really want to use this film to give people a reason to take a family trip to their resort. So that meant for this live action version, making changes in regards to how tourism is seen, as well as doing whatever they can to smudge the very visual line connecting the oppression of indigenous natives to the very tourist trap it became after being colonized by the states. Combine this with the casting of Sydney Agudong, allowing Disney the opportunity to make Nani's connection to the story be that of Hawaiian-born residents of the state instead of the ones specifically native to the land. With the erasure of and possibly control over the type of queer representation Pleakley's character is supposed to represent. And you don't have Lilo and Stitch. You have capitalism piloting its body to blend in with society, while the real Lilo and Stitch is trapped in the sunken place. That's why I'm not watching this movie. That's why you shouldn't watch this movie. That's why none of us should go watch this movie, because I'm tired that Disney thinks it can consistently get away with this shit and not be punished for it. Disney made this movie, changing elements of it to not offend the group of individuals the creator initially was trying to critique in the first place, just because they want said people to go to a group of islands in the movie simply because they built a resort there. Islands that, while also home to the proper native people that do everything they can to hold on to their connection to both it and their culture, are constantly changed by that colonization result in real time. This is why the Lahaina fires were devastating for the indigenous natives there. Culture, landmarks, sacred spaces, as well as homes were lost. And if it weren't for their sense of community, a lot more would have been lost too. Yet, despite this, the tourists still came. Just like the COVID refugees that came during the beginning of the pandemic and making things worse for them, those who continue to see Hawaii as nothing but a statewide tiki-themed resort continue to arrive during a time where the indigenous natives are trying to regroup, renew, and regrow. Because they have an investment in Hawaii in the form of this resort, Disney knows all of this. But because they are currently run by variously aged white men that care more about capitalism than compassion, they don't care. Especially now. So already knowing what it does to the island and the native people, they took a property that was made to show the strife of the Native Hawaiians dealing with privileged white tourists and retrofitted it to make them feel like they're not an invasive species that the animated feature did. And if you're wondering how I got to this point simply from watching the trailer, the white overweight ice cream tourist is now the Polynesian overweight snow cone native. It's for these reasons that I am absolutely invested in the downfall of this film, and I want everyone else to be in it for the same exact reasons. I want this bitch to make $0 in the box office. I want Disney to feel what Sony execs felt when they thought that us memeing Morpheus meant that we wanted them to put that bitch back in theaters. I want them to know that they just can't keep getting away with taking art that was hatched in their nests and willingly feed the hatchlings to the vicious and uncaring wildlife that is capitalism. So just like what we're doing with Tesla and just like what we're doing with Target, we have to show Disney who the fuck they think they talking to. And that just because they think that all it'll take for us to like whatever propaganda they deliver is the factor of nostalgia, doesn't mean that that's the case. I don't care if the movie is good. Do not reinforce this bad behavior from Disney. And if you have to see it, find ways of doing so without contributing to its box office. And the real ones know exactly what I mean by that. Trust me, not feeding into a propaganda machine like this live-action Lilo and Stitch remake has been made into is just as powerful a way of fighting back against the forces that be as any other. Because if there's one thing that the current bourgeoisie cares about most, it's having their money messed with. Also, the money you would have spent on tickets, snacks, and a fancy popcorn bucket, you could send to places like Evergreen Collective. They deal with fighting climate change, period. Policy changes to help combat it on a national level, Green New Deal aligned and inspired jobs surrounding clean energy and the like, even ways of checking and regulating corporations that are heavily responsible for why global warming is so rampant right now. That's big oil, that's Walmart and Amazon, that's Disney. That's pretty much everyone exploiting people and land for commercial gain without paying any attention to the environmental and cultural damage they're doing to them unless they're ordered to by the highest law in the land. And they barely even do that. This is one of the various charities I learned about after signing up for Bono. A cause I really care about other than queer rights and gender equality is combating the climate crisis, because the combination of white supremacy and capitalism is killing the planet just as much and just as fast as it is killing us. They may not plant trees, but the Evergreen Collective does what it takes law and job-wise to make sure that we continue to have a proper habitual climate to plant those trees in, and that's just as important. So if you want to donate to it or any of the other charities working with Bono, feel free to click my affiliate link in the description box below, sign up, choose how much you want to donate, and join the community that I'm trying to build there. But other than that, readers, your homework assignment for the day. Write in the comment section below, if they're different than mine, what your reasons are for not going to see this live-action Lilo and Stitch movie. Yes, I just automatically assume that you're not going to see it. Shut up. I mean, it could be as simple as, I don't like Disney live-action remakes, and I'll be like, okay, work. Because like I said earlier, I'm 4 to 5 out of 17. The odds aren't in my favor like that, I promise you. Either way, I'd love to know your thoughts. A huge shout out to my patrons, both big and small, for helping make this channel possible. Make sure you check out the card at the end of the video to join, or click the link to it or any of my affiliates in the description box below. But until then, this is Readus 101. Class dismissed.